If you grew up in Canada before the mid-90s, one bag of chips mattered more than any other. The bright red Hostess bag. 3 little goblin mascots called the Munchies juggling tomatoes on the front, and a jingle that's still rattling around in the head of an entire generation. 'Cause when you've got the Munchies, nothing else will do. For more than 50 years, Hostess wasn't just a chip brand in Canada. It was the chip brand, the default, the one every kid begged for at the corner store. They were so dominant that American giants spent years trying to crack the Canadian market and kept bouncing off. Hostess held the #1 spot through the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, all the way into the 80s. They even invented the single most Canadian snack flavor there is, ketchup chips. That one is theirs. And yet, if you walk into a grocery store in Canada today, you will not find a single bag of Hostess chips. The name is gone. It vanished off the shelves in 1996, replaced by a yellow bag with an American logo on it. So what happened? How does a brand go from owning an entire country's snack aisle to disappearing completely? Today, I'm going to walk through the whole story by following the owners who passed it around over the decades. And along the way, I'll lay out what I think are the 5 biggest reasons Hostess died. The beginning. It started in 1935 on a kitchen stove. A potato farmer named Edward Snyder began frying chips on his mother's stove in Breslau, Ontario, just outside Kitchener. Small operation, local. Through the 30s and 40s, potato chips were a pretty minor part of the snack world, so the company stayed modest for a while. Then Snyder did the thing that turns out to be the pattern for this entire story. He sold. In 1955, he handed the company to a man named E.W. Vanstone, who grew it significantly. And then in 1959, Vanstone sold his interest to General Foods, one of the biggest food conglomerates on the planet at the time. That 1959 sale is when Hostess stopped being a small Ontario chip maker and became a national machine. General Foods had the money, the factories, and the distribution to put Hostess in every corner store in the country. By the 1960s, they were dominant in Ontario and spreading fast everywhere else. The ketchup chip. And here's where the legend really gets made. In the early 1970s, somebody at Hostess had the idea to take the most beloved pairing in fast food, fries and ketchup, and turn it into a chip. Tomato powder, vinegar, sugar, a little garlic, and onion. Sweet, tangy, and bright red enough to stain your fingers for a week. It was an instant hit. Ketchup chips became a craze that spread coast to coast, and to this day, Canadians treat them like a national treasure. Americans, by the way, mostly still don't get them. That flavor alone tells you how much creative firepower this brand had at its peak. But that exact same swing for the fences attitude leads straight into my first reason behind their decline. The menu mistakes. Reason 1. The flavor mistakes. Riding high off the ketchup win, Hostess apparently decided the world also wanted fruit-flavored potato chips. So in the 1970s, they actually released grape, orange, and cherry chips. Let that sit for a second. Fruit chips. Sweet, fruity potato chips. Canadians hated them. People who tried them talk about it like a trauma, with some claiming online decades later that they still can't get the taste out of their mouths. This was their new Coke, a self-inflicted wound from a company that got a little too confident after one big success. They survived it. And weirdly, the disaster handed them something good, because the marketing response to it became their most iconic asset. In 1981, a Canadian artist named Richard Sue designed 3 friendly little goblin creatures, colored red, orange, and yellow, to be the face of the brand. The Munchies. They were slapped on every bag, woven into every Saturday morning cartoon commercial break, and paired with the unforgettable slogan, "Nothing else will do." For most of the 1980s, the Munchies were as recognizable to Canadian kids as any cartoon character. The brand looked untouchable. Reason 2. The owners. Which brings me to the second reason. Ownership. Notice the pattern here. Snyder sold to Vanstone. Vanstone sold to General Foods. And the selling was not done. In 1987, Hostess partnered with Frito-Lay, the American snack juggernaut owned by PepsiCo. The stated reason was corn chips. Frito-Lay wanted to bring Doritos, Ruffles, Tostitos, and Cheetos into Canada, and Hostess had the distribution network to do it. That partnership became a full merger in 1988. The combined company was called Hostess Frito-Lay. For a while, the Hostess name still sat front and center, so most Canadians never noticed anything had changed. Then in 1992, PepsiCo bought out General Foods' remaining stake and took full ownership. And this is the quiet turning point of the entire story. Hostess was now just one brand inside a massive American portfolio. The people making the decisions weren't Canadians protecting a Canadian icon. They were global executives looking at a spreadsheet. And on that spreadsheet, they already owned a bigger, more famous chip brand. Lay's. A brand is only safe as long as the people who own it want to keep it. Hostess had been sold so many times that by the early 90s, nobody who owned it had any emotional reason to keep the name alive. Reason 3. Competition. The third reason is competition, and this is the one that actually started bleeding sales. By the late 80s and early 90s, the chip aisle got crowded with a new kind of product. Upscale brands. Miss Vicky's and Kettle chips showed up with thicker cuts, fancier bags, and a premium story. Suddenly, the bright red Hostess bag that every kid loved started to look cheap and dated next to them. This is what gets called brand erosion. Hostess didn't get knocked out by one big rival the way KFC got passed by Chick-fil-A. It got chipped away from several directions at once. The premium brands quietly walked off with the top of the market. Reason 4. The price squeeze. And the bottom of the market got taken too, which is my fourth reason. Store brands. Grocery chains started rolling out their own house brand chips at noticeably lower prices. When a no-name bag costs less and tastes close enough, a lot of shoppers stopped caring about the logo on the front. So Hostess was getting squeezed from above by the premium brands, and from below by the cheap store brands. The middle, which is exactly where Hostess lived, is the worst possible place to be standing in a price war. Reason 5. The rebrand. Which leads to the fifth and final reason, and it's the most brutal one. PepsiCo simply decided to erase the name. With sales sliding, the owners made a call. Why keep pouring money into a struggling Canadian brand when you already own Lay's, a brand you sell in dozens of countries around the world? So in 1996, they decided to retire the Hostess name and move the products under the Lay's banner. There was one awkward problem. Lay's was already being sold in Canada by a third party, and Canadians considered it the inferior chip. Hostess was the good one. Lay's was the knockoff. So PepsiCo had to convince an entire country that the brand they had loved their whole lives was being replaced by the one they used to look down on. They did it with money. A huge campaign from the agency BBDO launched the new Lay's in 1997, using famous hockey players like Mark Messier and Eric Lindros, and the slogan, betcha can't eat just one. And it worked almost disturbingly well. Within 18 months, Lay's was selling twice the volume that Hostess had been selling under its own name. The brand Canadians thought was untouchable was gone in about a year and a half. The company even dropped Hostess from its own name, becoming Frito-Lay Canada. Munchie murder, as one Canadian writer put it, the twist. So, that's the fall. But here's the part that makes this story different from a normal corporate death. Hostess didn't actually disappear. It got absorbed so completely that it became invisible. Think about it. The ketchup chip Hostess invented is now a permanent piece of Canadian identity, sold in every grocery store in the country, just under a different logo. There's a long-running rumor that the reason regular chips come in yellow bags, salt and vinegar in blue, and sour cream and onion in green, across basically every brand, is because Hostess set that color code first. Their hickory sticks survived the rebrand completely intact and still sit on shelves today. And then in September 2024, PepsiCo did something almost nobody expected. They brought the Munchies back. Those three little goblins returned as the face of a brand new snack line 20 years after they had last appeared. So did Hostess really fall? Or did it just get swallowed by the thing that beat it, leaving its fingerprints all over every chip aisle in the country? The name died. The DNA never did. Anyway, that's the rise and fall of Hostess potato chips, and those are the 5 reasons I think the brand vanished. But I want to hear from you, especially if you're Canadian and you actually lived through this. Do you remember the red bag and the Munchies? Were you team ketchup, or were you an all-dressed person? Do you agree with my list of reasons, or is there one you would add or take off? And did anyone actually like the fruit chips, or is that taste still haunting you decades later? Let me know in the comments. And if you want a full video on one of the brands that helped kill Hostess, like Miss Vicky's or the entire Frito-Lay empire, tell me and I'll make it. Thanks for watching.